Hi, good morning everyone. Happy Friday. My name is Emmy and I'm working for Broadbean, and I'm one of the product trainers here in Broadbean, responsible for Europe, obviously for the German speaking and also for the English market. Let me just quickly start what Broadbean is. So Broadbean is a career builder company with, we have the headquarters here in London. But we also have a global presence with offices in France, in Germany, Netherlands, the US, and also Australia. And now if you're asking yourself, what does Broadbean do? So Broadbean provides a smart, innovative global recruitment technology. And we help over 110,000 recruiters to reach candidates in a fast and effective way. Our software makes it easy for our clients to distribute jobs and search for talent online with just a few clicks. So as an example, one of the benefits with our system is, for example, it shows you exactly which job board is a good job board for you, where do you get the best candidates from, and also which day is a good day for you to post a job. And this will help you and your business to be more efficient in the recruitment industry. And also, so with Barclay Jones, who are specialists in recruitment technology and also for social media for recruitment. So we are all doing these training sessions, these joint webinars on a regular basis. So yeah, it's Lisa already on the call with us. Hi Lisa.
Hi there, how are you doing?
I'm good, thank you. You okay?
I'm good, thank you.
Perfect.
So hi everybody, very quickly, it's Lisa from Barclay Jones. I'm absolutely delighted that we've managed to get my two best Broadbeaners in the room, and obviously the lovely Emmy as well. We've been using Broadbean, Wayne and I and Rose, probably since the early 2000s when it was first launched, and it has made massive progress in terms of not just being a bit of job posting kit. So one of the reasons we wanted to run this webinar today was to maybe just expel some myths about what it is there to do, but also to make it more effective. We also have a product ourselves, which is called Love Broadbean, where we go into businesses on a regular basis and basically just put a rocket through it to make it work more effectively and make sure you make some money from it. I want to make sure that you get something out of today. I want to make sure that you get some return on investment for today. So make sure you've got a pen and pad, because I'm going to ask you at the end of this session what you're going to do differently as a result of this webinar, because otherwise you're just wasting your lovely time. So also I want to make sure you're tweeting. Who's on Twitter today? Just put the word tweet into your chat box, please, everybody, if you're on Twitter today, because we know that recruiters can multitask, because you get the opportunity to do that every single day of your lives when you're in your job. Okay, so we've got some tweeters online, so make sure you mention Recruit Clever so we can engage with you more effectively. And now I'm going to hand you over to the rest of the team.
Hi everyone, welcome to the webinar. My name is Rose Megson. I'm a social media and CRM rec tech trainer for Barclay Jones. Please feel free to link up with me on LinkedIn. Obviously, like I said, my name is Rose Megson there on the screen, and also follow me on Twitter as well, so @RoseMegson.
Hi everybody, my name is Wayne Barclay. Many of you may have spoken to me in the past. I've been in recruitment, a long time, 16 years. Thank you, Rose. 16 years. I've actually been using Broadbean, and the business I worked at initially when I was database administrator many moons ago was one of the first organizations to implement Broadbean back in 2001/2002. I think Broadbean's a fantastic product. It adds so much value to the recruitment experience, but also to the candidate experience, and that's kind of what we're going to be talking about today. My Twitter handle is Wayne A. Barclay, so please feel free to follow me and obviously link in with me as well. It'd be great to hear from you guys what you do. Okay, first and foremost, before we go any further, I want to know who you are. Webinars are very good, but they need to be kind of targeted, so we want to make sure that the sorts of people that we're speaking to are the right people. Sorry, the people that we're talking to, and the questions that we're asking and the answers that we're getting are relevant. So what I'm going to do is I've just launched a bit of a poll on your screen. It would be great if you could tick what job do you do. Okay, it's a bit like Brexit, leave or in. So currently recruitment consultants are leading, leaders are up there, there's a few IT teams and a couple of back office support. but the vast majority of you are clearly recruitment consultants. Over 2/3 of you currently are recruitment consultants. So, well, when we sort of go through this, we'll make sure that we're targeting and talking around the recruitment experience, as well as what you should be getting from an ROI perspective. Just going to close that. Hopefully, you should now basically see my screen again. Okay, the next question I want to do, I'm going to share that for you. You can see the results. There we go. Okay, I've got one other question. So, first and foremost, are you a good user of Broadbean? So let's have a look to see whether or not you're actually using the system particularly well. We have some gods. That's good to see. We don't have many gods, but we have some gods. Most of you are saying you're pretty much okay, you love it, but you want to get more from it, which is kind of what we're expecting. Almost 1 in 5 of you are saying, what's Broadbean? So I would suspect either you don't use it, or alternatively you use a different system and potentially you might be looking to move to Broadbean. Okay, a couple more seconds, I'm going to close the poll. 3, 2, 1, closed. And if I share that very quickly, so I would say 70%, 75% of you basically love it or want to know more from it. So today's poll, hopefully, or today's webinar will really help that process with you. Okay, so what's our agenda today? So we have a couple of areas. One, we're going to talk about some super admin stuff. So this will help you guys, those of you who are users of the system, to understand a little bit more behind the scenes. Bear with me. There we go, and hide. So that will help you basically understand behind the scenes exactly what the system can do for you. So you might realize actually there are a couple of areas that you wish it did do, and actually it can do, but you're just not aware of that. So for those of you recruitment consultants and recruitment leaders, those are the people that should potentially go to your super user, your super administrator of the Broadbean system and say, I wanted to do X because I've been shown it can do that. Rose is going to talk to you around a lot of the posting aspects, so how to improve the candidate experience, how to improve the recruitment experience. We're going to talk about the managing applications, again, that experience that everyone goes through, and also ultimately the report. So as a leader, how can I use Broadbean to get some return on investment? Right, our first tip, getting the system set up correctly. Getting the system set up correctly is one of the areas that when I go into an organization is absolutely critical because so much hangs off the back of it. When you're setting up access to job boards, when you're setting up access to CV searching, when you're setting up permissions, those sorts of things, if you get the structure of the Broadbean system correct in the first place, then everything else kind of falls into place. There's a couple of ways in which you can do this. Broadbean works on a company, office, and team structure. So normally you have your company at the top, then you might have your various different offices or locations, and then you might have the teams within those locations. Now that works fine if you work towards that sort of structure. However, some organizations have teams that are split across multiple locations. So sometimes you might end up with company, and then underneath that you'll have your divisions or your vertical markets, and underneath that you may have your location. So there's different ways and means in which you can split up the data or split up your user setup. It's really beneficial because things like when you're running reports, it also makes sure that reporting on teams or locations is also really, really effective. So first tip of the day, make sure you get Broadbean set up with the correct logins and the correct users set up. The way in which you do that is you go into your company permissions and you look at users, and in there you basically add your teams and then you add your individuals into it. The next one is CV search. So CV search is one of those fantastic areas that Broadbean launched a number of years ago, or early 2000s again, and it has a number of benefits to users. First and foremost are consultants. One, if you're a large recruiter, or even if you're not a large recruiter, but if you've got multiple different job boards, the management of passwords can be a bit of a pain. So what you can do here is, instead of giving every single recruitment consultant the password for every single job site that they need and trying to manage that, what you can do is give users one password, which is the Broadbean password or their own individual Broadbean password, and then direct them to the area that's CV search. And then you can get them to click a button, which admin and the super admin has given permissions for the job boards, for the user to click that button, and then that will take them into the various different job boards to be able to go and do the CV searching. As I say, it simplifies the ways in which consultants get access to the job boards, and also from an IT manager perspective, it simplifies the leavers process, because when somebody leaves the business, and we know that recruitment, lots of people leave the business or change jobs quite regularly, it means that the leavers process, you don't really have to worry about it. You lock out the person's Broadbean account, and therefore you don't need to change any access or passwords to the various different job boards. It's a great way of protecting job board passwords. Fourth tip. This is one for leaders, I think, more than anybody else, and also the IT team. The fourth tick option is when you're using Aplitrak, when you're using Ad Courier, which is the posting of job boards. This is the way in which you can ensure that every single person in your business is always advertising, on your website, which is what you want, and probably in your social streams. It helps the recruitment consultants save a click or save a number of different clicks, and it also makes sure that the jobs that are posted out are always posted in the same locations, as well as the additional job boards that the recruitment consultant wants to post them. So it's one of those things that you have to speak to Broadbean support about. So if you're an administrator and you want to get a particular job board that's always advertised to, speak to Broadbean support and say, can I have forced tick please on the following job boards? Absolutely brilliant tip. Another one. Now this is quite, there's lots of people that basically say that grammar and spelling has deteriorated since the onset of spell checks and computers. Certainly teachers and some friends of mine whose parents are teachers. So one thing that Broadbean does have is the spell check in the system when you've added the advert into the description area of Broadbean on page 2. You have got the option there to check your advert, or alternatively you can actually speak to Broadbean support and ask them to force spell check. Again, it's one of those hidden permissions. So if you want to make sure that every single one of your consultants does a spell check on one of their adverts, speak to Broadbean support. They will tick a box and remarkably in the background or magically in the background, and that means every single time somebody posts a job, they will be asked and spell check will run. Okay, Add Approve. Add Approve is one of those aspects of, again, checking adverts before they go live. It's really beneficial if you have very strict guidelines on how you're supposed to advertise your jobs. It's very good if you have things like retainers and corporate agreements with clients as to the structure of how the adverts should go out. And also, it's very good if you've got new starters and you actually want to check the adverts that go out before they actually advertise. So the Add Approve process, basically the process will be that every time a consultant will run through their Ad Courier process, they will post their job. When they post it, it doesn't quite get posted, it gets held. And then somebody has to go in and check over the details. They have to rerun the process essentially, and then they're able to update it and change it, and then once they've done that, they're able to then basically publish it at that. So there's a couple of areas that you need to go into to get this set up. First and foremost, you need to go into company permissions and you need to look at the account permissions. And on my screen you'll see I've highlighted it down. Under posting it says Add Approve activated, and you would change no to yes. So that's one process. So that basically means immediately the Add Approve process will kick in. The next process will be managing the adverts as well. So there's two things here. There is a risk, quite a significant risk actually, to the Add Approve process, and that's if you work in a very fast-paced recruitment environment, there is the risk that it will slow down the advert publishing process. So there's two things you can do here. One is make sure that you set an Add Approve reminder. So every single time an ad's waiting, an email gets generated and it gets sent through to the Ad Approver. The other tip, the significant tip I've got, is don't use an individual for ad approving. Use what's known as a distribution list. So make sure that you have a team of people who the reminder goes to. So it could be, I don't know, add approver at your company domain name. That way, everyone will basically realize that there's an ad waiting to be approved, and everyone should then jump in and basically try and approve it. The reason why you want to do a team is that if somebody's on holiday or somebody's off sick or they're just very, very busy, you're not relying on one person. So the ad approve process. The other thing that you need to do is make sure that you speak to Broadbean and tell them what email address you want to send the ad approve email reminder to. Okay, notifications. Notifications are one of those areas that I think really Broadbean excels at this. There are multiple different notifications, and there are multiple ways in which you can improve the candidate experience. You notice I mentioned the word candidate experience several times throughout this webinar because the #1 complaint from candidates is they never either hear back from applicants or consultants about their application, or alternatively, they hear a little bit, but they don't hear what the outcomes have been. Broadbean has a number of ways in which you can communicate to applicants. One is the auto-response process. So every single time somebody applies, a response goes to that candidate saying, "Thank you very much for your application." Now, I would highly recommend you tailor that auto-response to your culture, the way in which you talk to your consultants and your candidates, the way in which the message that you want to get across. So you could say, as I've seen lots of times, thank you very much for your notification. If you haven't heard back from us from 5 days, and assume you've been unsuccessful, which is okay. However, that doesn't leave, in my mind, a lasting impression about your organization. So I read something about Airbnb recently and the way in which they structured their candidate experience process. And they basically not only put, "Thank you very much for your application. We really value the time that you spent in trying to get in applying for this job." But what they also did was basically put a structure about, okay, this is the steps, this is the recruitment process that your application is now going to go through. And these are the times at which you're going to be communicated with, either through email or alternatively through somebody speaking to you. So it's a great way of communicating. That's the auto-response process. The other one are the red, yellow, and amber flags. So red, yellow, and green flags. Those flags are ways in which you can communicate to your applicant and advise them where they are within the recruitment lifecycle. An amber flag is you're great you're great at what you do, but you're not quite right for this role potentially. A green flag is you're awesome, we love you, and somebody's going to be in contact with you within 24 hours. And a red flag is thank you very much for your applications. In this instance, you have been unsuccessful. Now, the thing that you need to remember here is even though you're flagging candidates, you have to use the email center to be able to actually send those emails. But the great benefit of doing those emails is that you can tailor them as well. So you can select a number of different people, and once you've selected those number of different people, you can send them the different flags. There are also other flags in there as well that are hidden that you may not be aware of, things like Unranked, which I think Rose is going to talk to you about as well. The other thing as well, those notifications, those emails, please remember this is a marketing email. So put links back to your own website, put branding onto those emails as well. They are HTML enabled, so use that option. Okay, so there are 4, 5, 6 really good tips from a super admin perspective. Some things that are hidden and some things that are not so hidden. Some things that your IT department or your super admin user should be able to set up quite quickly and should improve the candidate experience, should improve the way in which the consultant uses the system. One of those areas about improving the way in which the consultant uses the system is the fact that Broadbean is significantly integrated with a huge number of CRM systems. So integrating the system into your CRM system means that you never actually potentially leave the CRM system. The workflow is I add my advert into the CRM system, I click a button, and then Broadbean remarkably appears within my CRM system. So the flow and the way in which the advert gets advertised is really, really seamless. So I want to ask a quick question. How many of you are actually benefiting from Broadbean being integrated into your CRM system? So I'm going to launch this. I've asked the question, my Broadbean system is integrated with, and I've listed some of the major systems out there, or alternatively, I'd love to know if it's not. And if it's not, potentially that's something that you could speak to your IT team to find out whether or not it could be. Lots of you saying it's not, which is interesting. Now, there's reasons why it may not be. Some of those reasons could be that the IT department just weren't aware of it. There could be a cost implication. I don't think there is, though. Alternatively, it could be that the system hasn't been integrated yet with Broadbean. But speak to Broadbean, they're an awesome team. Their technical team are exemplary, and they're really good at integrating systems. Okay, I'm going to close that and share it very quickly so you can see the results. Thank you very much. And now I'm going to pass over to Rose, who's going to start talking about the posting process and the candidate experience and the recruitment experience as well.
Okay, so thank you, Wayne, for those first initial top tips. So moving on to posting, one of the first things that I'm going to talk about is the time that you're actually posting your adverts out. Recruitment is a very, very time-precious environment. We've got all sorts of things to do. We've got interviews to conduct. We've got CVs to read. We've got adverts to write. And it might be that you feel in a bit of a rush every day to get all these things done. And in a contract world as well, it'd be very, very quick. So I imagine that you get a job on and you get it advertised straight away, which is fair enough for the contract world. So this again might be slightly more tailored towards the permanent world. But what I'd like you to start thinking about is, when are my candidates online? Are they online at, let's say, 10 o'clock in the morning or 12 noon or 3 p.m. when I'm sat at my desk and I'm posting the advert just because I need to get it out there? Or are they online, well, I'll tell you some tips for peak traffic times on the internet and certainly app usage is between 8 and 9 in the morning. So I always imagine that people sat on a bus going to work, sat on the tube, sat on the train, hopefully not driving. And then between 8 and 10 at night as well. That's when we all sit on an evening, we're watching our favourite TV box set or whatever it might be, but we're also on our mobile phones scrolling around on those different apps. So what you might want to think about next time you put that advert out is, am I posting this at a time when it's actually going to be seen? So think about those times that I've mentioned, and when you go on to post your advert, one of the pages that you get to does actually ask you that question, posting time. Also think about holiday coverage as well. Maybe you're going to go away. Maybe you want your adverts to work in the background whilst you're sat sunning yourself on a beach. So you might want to set them to be posted out whilst you're actually even not in the country, let's say. There's also, and I'm going to talk about reports a little bit later on, but just so you're aware, there is a report as well. You can report on the best times to post within the particular job boards that you're signed up to as well. So if you haven't got access to reports, then don't worry, someone in your organisation will. Often the super admins will have main privileges to look at reports. But if you want to inquire about those, then just ask those people and try and get hold of that information, because there's some really, really great reports on Broadbean. So that's my first tip about posting time.
Cool. The other thing about posting tip to post the posting time as well. Those people who work in quite niche markets are always looking for specific types of candidates. It's well worth, you know, we talk about dummy vacancies, and so long as you're able to advertise dummy vacancies, so long as you make it very, very clear that you're looking for a type of people or group of people, it's well worth having those advertised at those key times when Rose has mentioned about getting candidates. When they do come online, Friday afternoon or Thursday afternoon, those sorts of things, making sure that you have an advert which is, this is my recruitment business, this is me, this is what I recruit, this is the specialism that I work within, so that you do get those candidates coming through to potentially at the right sort of time.
Fabulous. So my next tip is talking about search. So particularly a part of the search system called talent search. So you may have search enabled within your Broadbean system. Again, all of these things that we're talking about, if you're unsure, I would advise that, let's say if you're a recruiter, we know there's lots of recruiters on this webinar, you speak to super admin and maybe get super admin to then liaise with your Broadbean account manager. You may have access to search, you may have access to talent search, you might not. Talent search in particular looks at all the candidates that have ever applied for any of your adverts. So not just your adverts, but in your entire business. So every time a candidate applies, they go into the Aplitrak system, and you can go on and red flag them and yellow flag them and green flag them, as Wayne talked about earlier, and then usually they go onto your system. But actually they're all held in, like, let's say, a nice bucket or pool in the background as well. And at any point in time, using talent search, you can go back through and search through all those candidates that have previously applied. And it's very easy as well in recruitment to just think about your desk and what you're doing, but it might be that, you know, somebody else has been through candidates that have applied for their particular roles, they've flagged them in a certain manner that you wouldn't necessarily agree with, or you haven't even seen these candidates. You haven't seen the candidates that your colleague sat 2 tables away from you has put through the system, but using the talent search you can actually get access to those candidates. So regardless of the flags, those candidates are always there.
Brilliant. So, quick question for you. Where do you source candidates from? This was a leading question, I think, to find out whether or not any of you do actually have talent search. So I'm going to run a very, very quick poll here, which is, what's your first port of call when you source candidates? So we've got CRM system, we've got job boards, we've got social streams, we've got your spreadsheets. There's an awful lot of you who have spreadsheets, your hot lists on your spreadsheets potentially. And some of you actually got talent search. It would be great to hear actually from you guys who have got talent search, whether or not you find it really useful. Drop me a question and say, yeah, I love it. Okay, this is really interesting. I'm going to close it now, and it's pretty much in keeping with what I would expect. 62% of you. There's roughly almost 100 of you here. So 62% of you basically say that the first port of call is job boards. It's an interesting statistic. 70%, roughly 70% of candidates who you forward onto your CRM system to be added are probably 70% of them are already on your system already. So there's some interesting information, interesting stat there. I think it's just been proved again potentially. Okay, I'm going to hide that now. Rose, over to you.
Fabulous. So moving on to the managing part of the system, we've already covered this when to talk to you about setting these particular flags up, but actually using these flags within the Aplitrak system. So you put an advert out, you get a ton of response, and then you work your way through using the lovely Aplitrak system, and you can green flag, red flag, and yellow flag these particular candidates. Just to reiterate that, usually, I know Wayne said it earlier, but green flag generally means that the candidate is great and suitable for that particular role. And often, if you have your CRM integrated, the great thing about that is often then that particular candidate that you green flag is automatically shortlisted against that job. So it just saves you an absolute awful amount of time. Yellow flag is this is a really great candidate but not suitable for the job, and again in most situations the candidate is paused, added to the system, but in that case they wouldn't be shortlisted to that particular role. This is like typical examples of how people have the integration set up. And red flag is maybe an okay candidate but not suitable for what we're looking for at the time being. So the flagging the candidates is really great. If you link it with the email center and the message templates, which again Wayne talked about earlier, it's really good for candidate experience because they will realise that you've seen their application. It hasn't just gone into the ether and no one's been looking at it. But obviously also it just manages your desk, doesn't it? You can look at any job that you advertise and you can see these are all the candidates that are great. These are the ones that aren't suitable and so on. So it's just a really great time-saving tip, an organisational tip for you.
I think the other thing about flag candidates as well is that the fact that you can, if you're using it effectively across your business, you can see what other people have flagged against the candidate. So if Rose here thinks that a candidate has been absolutely great and Emmy thinks the candidate's great as well, when I'm looking at this application, I'm able to very quickly think, well, actually, these two people have thought that this person's good as well. So I might actually, instead of screening the candidate pick up the phone, I might go and speak to Rose first and foremost and say, tell me about Wayne Barclay, tell me about what he did, why did you speak to him, what sort of things he came. That may save you a little bit of time, it may give you a couple of extra nuggets of information, so when you do speak to the candidate, you're able to ask and probe a little bit more in depth. Okay, great tip, Rose.
Fabulous. Okay, so now we're moving on to those unranked candidates. So ranking is the green, the yellow and the red. But often, and you'll probably experience this, sometimes you can put adverts out there and you'll get a huge amount of response. It might be that you're going through a process, an advert's been out there for a while and it's still running in the background, but you've already got to your shortlist stage and you're already liaising with those interviews and so on. So, and we know that sometimes, you know, again, with this heavy workload that we all have, it might be that we have some candidates left who have applied for that particular position, but we just haven't got round to flagging them yet. So what we do is we class those as unranked candidates. And as part of the Broadbean system, you can also set up an email template in conjunction with the email center so that it will collect all those unflagged or unranked candidates and communicate with them and send them an email as well. So again, it's still keeping up with that whole candidate experience. No one's getting ignored. Everybody appreciates where they are within that recruitment cycle.
I've got a question here regarding green flag candidates automatically upload into Microdeck, but yellow flags don't. Can this be changed so yellow flags can also? It can be, but unfortunately Microdeck at this precise moment in time don't have that level of integration with Broadbean. We did a Microdeck a CRM upgrade a couple of years ago, 12 months ago. And that was one of the things that we found out as well. So I would request it. I'd go back to Linda at Microdeck and say to her, look, we really do want this functionality. It would be really beneficial. Broadbean can do it. It's actually with Microdeck at this precise moment in time. Hopefully that answers your question. Okay. The other thing I want to say about Unranked candidates, what a great feature. I have to say, fundamentally, from a candidate experience perspective, just leaving applications hanging, it's just poor practice. So having the ability to go back into the system and say, right, I just want to send a quick email to all my Unranked candidates. I want to close this vacancy down properly and just send them a quick email saying, thanks guys, we really had a phenomenal response. Unfortunately, you've been unsuccessful this time, but please, again, direct them back to your website, etc., etc. Whoever thought that functionality up, either within Broadbean or whichever client was, I'd love to give them a prize. I really would. I think it's a fantastic feature.
Lovely. Okay, so also in terms of managing the advert, number of candidates applying, so i.e. what type of candidates applying, are they relevant candidates, are you getting a good response, a bad response, even in terms of numbers or relevancy? So there is also, let's say you post an advert out there and it's out there for, let's say, about 7 days. You might not even want to leave it that long. But if you're looking at your advert response and it's low numbers or it's not quite the right type of candidate that you expected, then we need to really look at the advert. So we need to look at the advert text and we may need to consider resending the advert with some changes in it. Think about those keywords. Think about, we use the term WIFMs a lot, which if you're not sure what it is, it means what's in it for me. So think about from a candidate perspective, if you're looking for that particular role that you're advertising, you're looking to join that type of company, what are the things that are really, really going to attract that candidate's attention? What are they really looking out for? What benefits? What are those keywords and sort of like hot buttons that will really draw someone's attention to the advert? Talking about the company and the team culture as well are a really big pull for people. People want to know what type of environment they're going to be working in and what type of, what their colleagues are going to be like and so on. So really talking about those things will improve your advert response. So you might want to go in and you might want to edit the advert. I do want to at this point say very, very clearly that there is no such thing as a refresh in Broadbean. So if you do change your advert and resend it, then you will use another credit. So I just want to make that really, really clear.
I think it's one of those things that recruiters just don't realise they're doing sometimes, Rose.
Yeah, definitely.
I'm just going to amend my advert and resend it. When actually what you're doing is using another credit, and it's costing you twice as much money as you used to do. Okay. There we go.
Okay, so other ways to manage. Within the Aplitrak system, you're going through all your applications and you're reviewing the CVs, and obviously in your mind you're making decisions about that candidate and thoughts and so on. It might even be that you're calling those candidates as well and qualifying them a little bit further. Then in the Aplitrak system, down the right hand side of the screen, as you'll see on the screen dump, there are some options to do add notes onto there as well. So you might be making some quick notes as you're reading the CV, or as I said, on the call to the candidate about their wants and needs and the suitability for that particular role. At the moment, when you add those notes, they're only seen by yourself and obviously a super admin, because super admin gets to see everything, those lucky people. Also on down the right hand side of the screen as well, you might want to look at, there's a section called recent applications, so you can see if that candidate's actually applied for any of your adverts or anybody else's jobs as well. And you can create hot lists. I'm sure you've got hot lists in your CRM, or you might have hot lists in spreadsheets, dare we say it. But think about the types of candidates that you're constantly on the lookout for. Maybe there's a certain type of role that you're constantly recruiting for, or maybe you've got a really elusive type of candidate that there's not that many of them on the market. So if you get hold of one, you want to put them in a hot list. And Broadbean allows you to create those hot lists as well. So definitely have a look at that feature. And then finally, right down at the bottom, you've got those little social icons. So again, we all like to check people out on their different medias as well. So we look at LinkedIn, we might look at Facebook and so on. And handily, Broadbean have put those little icons down at the bottom. So just click the button and it will take you straight onto Twitter, LinkedIn, Facebook, and it will try and find that particular candidate's profile on there. So you can research them and find out a little bit more about them, perhaps before you make that call.
I stumbled across this recently and I thought it was an absolutely fantastic feature. I thought the ability to be able to look at a candidate and screen them, but also look at their social streams and see what they've done previously was really, really useful. The other thing then there is forward CV as well. And I think forward CV is one of those areas whereby it's particularly used if you've got an amber flag where the candidate may be suitable. It may be suitable because he's right for your industry, but you may be suitable because one of your team or somebody within your business that you know works with a specific type of candidate might be relevant for those. And what recruiters are very good at doing is amber flagging, waiting for the candidate to be uploaded into the CRM system, and then nothing happens to the candidate. So use the forward option within that forward CV option to be able to forward that to a specific consultant within your business. Say, just like you can do with LinkedIn, found this candidate, think he's brilliant, is he right for you, or is he right for your team at all? So some really good tips there.
Okay, and a final one from me. I'm just going to move into reports. Now, I actually have only selected one report, and there are many, many reports within Broadbean. So as I've said throughout this webinar, if any of these features, you're looking at this report and you think, I really want to get my hands on it and find it interesting, speak to your super admin, or if you're super admin already, then speak to your account manager if you're not too sure where the reports are, or if you're not too sure that you've got access to them. This is one of my favourite reports, and we've been talking about flags, obviously, a lot this webinar as well. But the response tracking report, you can set it with lots of different criteria. You can set it to consultants, so you can look at your adverts and the responses that you've been getting. You can look at a specific job board. Maybe you may be a bit concerned about the return on investment from a particular board. You can look at a particular industry, so you might just want to look at your FMCG team or your oil and gas team. And you can even drill it down to job type as well. So you can differentiate between advert responses on a job board for contract, interim, temp or perm, whatever you may recruit. So the criteria is very wide. The reports are dead easy to use as well, but this report in particular shows you the number of advert responses and works out the average number of advert responses to a particular advert. But then more interestingly, and this is the bit that I really like, is it also shows you the percentage responses as ranked by your consultants. So it might say, and I don't want to name any job boards, but it might say, I don't know, Rosie's job board is getting, tons and tons of response. But then actually I look at the percentage ranked by consultant, and unfortunately the consultants within my business are red flagging all of those candidates. So I'm going to look at that job board, maybe the marketer or someone who's in charge of those job board contracts, and think, hang on a second, yeah, we're getting a lot of response, but we're obviously not getting the right type of response. Or it might be the other way around. You might look at a job board, you might be getting fewer responses, but they're all being green flagged, so you're getting a really good return on investment from that particular board. So that's one of my favourite reports, but like I said, it's one of many, so there are more to investigate.
Brilliant. Okay, so those are the vast majority of our top tips currently. Yeah, I'm going to summarise these things here. We'll be able to get these this information out to you if you want it. But basically, the most important thing I would say here is that, as with any system, you need to make sure you have your process in place, and that process has to start with setup. If you get your setup done correctly, that helps basically people understand how they should be using it and why they should be using it. You then have to basically make sure that people understand and be trained upon how to use it, and that means following the process. That means following, this is why we do things, and this is the benefits of doing it. So all these things will help through that process. Do you have any questions? There's some questions people that have already asked in there regarding microdeck and the amber flagging. Is there anything else that people have got a burning desire? If you want to drop it in there, I will respond to you directly if you want to. Okay, final poll. What have you learned today? What is it you're going to be taking away from today? Have you learned anything? What is it you're going to be basically updating? So if you've learnt loads, or if you've learnt a little bit, in your questions area, your chat area, tell me what it is specifically that you've taken away from today that you're going to go away and implement. talent search, reports, flagging, of course, tracking of candidates, fantastic. So lots of you saying that you've learned a lot, which is fantastic. Lots of you basically saying that you've learned quite a bit and you're going to be basically taking some stuff away. Postponing adverts when you put adverts up, that's really, really good. You can close that down. Thank you very much.
Right, hi guys, we've got a couple of other webinars coming up that we wanted to let you know about. Whether you use Adapt or not, we are doing a webinar for anyone who wants to listen regarding Adapt UX, so there's some information there. If you're interested in that webinar, please write the word Adapt in your chat facility and we will send you some data on that and get you registered. Really looking forward to seeing that new system, and Rose is going to be running that. And also, because of obviously our relationship with Broadbean, we are regularly working with clients to help them get our ROI from the system. So we'll come and have a look at your system, look at helping you how to use it more effectively, not just from a recruiter perspective, but from a recruitment leader and obviously a recruitment marketeer perspective, because we do a lot of marketing mentoring. So if you want to know more about what we do with clients to help them get more out of Broadbean, just put the word love into your chat facility, please, and we'll send you some information on that. So obviously we've had a really, really good webinar from the specialists on Broadbean today. We really hope you've enjoyed it and we really feel that you've gained something from it. And we look forward to seeing you on the next webinar. Take care, everyone.